Welcome to Season 3, Episode 5 of the Southerners Podcast, Teacher Talks, where you can get to know more about your teachers. I'm Sarah Sun.
And I'm Lily Wu.
And in this episode, we interviewed Mr. Moran, an English teacher here at Great Neck South High. Hi, Mr. Moran. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this podcast with us today. We have a few questions for you.
Okay.
So firstly, could you briefly introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Michael Moran. This is my 20th year teaching as a whole. I've been here for 12 years, and I taught for 8 years in the Levittown School District.
What made you want to become a teacher?
I wanted to find the way to do the most good. In high school, I found myself in classes where students would typically need help. They'd have questions, and I'd be the one, especially in math and Spanish, who would offer that help. And then when I went to college, the original intention was to become a lawyer. And I was at St. John's, and I was speaking with some of the professors there, and just that conversation that took place, it drove me away from that profession. And I realized there's probably a better place for me to spend my time and help the most people. So that's what made me come here.
What made you choose the English department in particular?
I actually had a toss-up between math and English. And when I entered my first really sophisticated math course to become a teacher, I was sitting there and I said, this isn't it. I knew that that's not how I wanted to spend my days. And I just started reading more and more and more. I said, this is where I could spend time. This is where I could really dissect what students want to talk about and find the universal themes, and that had more meaning to me. So that's where I wanted to spend my time.
And why did you choose to advise Exit 33?
A door opened. At that point, the previous advisor retired, and he said, we have an opening available now if anybody wants to take it. And I said, that'll definitely be me. I want to be there with students. I want to look at their writing, because I think so many times, especially in this building, in a STEM-driven school, we overlook those students who write, who have that creative flair, and who want to get published. So that could be a place for them to really come and work on their craft and hopefully have advice about what to do with it once they have it. I think sometimes too, students get so wrapped up in what they're doing that they don't want to share it anymore, that they are insecure with it. And hopefully we can create a place where it's comfortable for them to, I guess, share with other people and send it out into the world for submissions. Because it's beautiful that they have it done, but now it has to go out.
And you've been an amazing advisor for Exit 33. Oh. And you also teach a lot of English classes here at Great Neck South High. You teach the classes for different grades and also a lot of electives. So what's your favorite class to teach?
I love the content that's in 11 AP Language and Composition. Looking at language and rhetoric and how to formulate arguments, dissecting the pieces that we read. It is challenging for me, and that makes me want to keep coming back to it. But I find that the English 9 honors students are, for the most part, really engaged and curious, and they have plenty of questions. And I think something happens between 9th grade and 11th grade where students stop asking questions and they just kind of receive information. English 9 honors students are fresh and curious, and they have questions, and I'd love to see that carry through 9, 10, 11, and 12. So that would be good to see.
Do you find that it often carries through? And if not, then why not?
I don't know why not. I find that the people just kind of clam up once they get to 11th grade. I'm not sure if it's an insecurity about thinking that everybody else knows more, and so they don't want to appear on the outside and that they are ignorant or that they didn't learn something they were supposed to, but the conversations just kind of stop. So that's why I find in my 11th grade classes, when I say, okay, turn and talk to each other, people are more than willing to share information with each other, but in a larger setting, they just stop speaking.
It could just be burnout.
Is that what it is? By 11th grade, you just
burnout.
Yeah.
For the rising seniors, do you have any recommendations on what electives they should take for English?
I mean, my recommendation is all of them. I don't know if you're allowed to take more than the 2 elective spaces that you have, but I mean, I hear great things about people enjoying creative writing, rhetoric of the moving image. The themes in literature is always a fan favorite. Short story, if you're looking for a change of pace every day, where you're going to have every couple of days new stories, especially if you're digging into stuff you haven't read before. Shakespeare, it's up and running now, so if you are tired of reading the tragedies, it's a chance for you to experience the comedies and see a different side of Shakespeare's work. Journalism, if you want to give a thumbs up to journalism, okay. Right, so really, if you want to be a writer and if you want to read more, take as many electives as you possibly can. Yeah.
Can you maybe talk a little bit more about your own writing and what kind of writing do you do and what's your creative process, since you talk about like creating your own like short story and you allow us to do like our own journal writing time in class every day?
Well, yeah, I mean, I encourage you to have the journal writing because I have my own journal. This is now, I think, 20 years that I've been going on writing in a journal. It's been consistent ever since. I started out writing really bad poetry, and from there, that type of focused writing then expanded into more creative nonfiction. I think I found a good place with my writing creative nonfiction, with writing about life with diabetes, with life as a father. And from there, that writing has then improved my writing as a short story writer. So I do most of my ideas here first. It starts in the journal, and then I take it to the typewriter and just bang out for multiple days the ideas. There's no censorship, there's no stopping it. It's usually just loud, intense, metal, rock, anything like that, or then you switch it to something that is a little more melodic and sad, depending on the feeling you want. And then once I get a good stack of paper, I go through with a highlighter and I highlight the key lines. So sometimes I might have a page that's really terrible, but there's one line in there that's really good. And then I will build off of that, take the pencil to it, outline, and then I'll transfer it over to a document, let it sit for a week, look at it again, show it to my wife. If it makes sense to her, then it's usually good to go and submit to places.
You mentioned your typewriter a lot, and we know a bold and amazing feature of your room is the three typewriters in the back.
Yeah.
What do you like about the typewriter, and why do you encourage people to type on it?
So you have an option with a typewriter where you could get the white part of the ink ribbon on the bottom, where then you could, on some of them, go back and erase it. I just have the black ink on it, so you don't get to erase anything. That it prevents you from editing as you go and actually just creating content. So that's one feature that I love about it, is that it doesn't allow me to go back. It's just go forward, which means then writing the same sentence multiple times or just sometimes screaming onto the keys. But it feels like a bigger release. I don't get the same sensation out of typing on a computer that I do with forcing my hand down on the typewriter. So it is more energetic and it involves more of my own force to create.
And you mentioned also the publishing process previously, and we know it's sort of like an ubiquitous experience for writers to get their writing published and go through the submitting process. Right. So what are some recommendations you have for young writers who want to get their work published?
Submit early, submit often, and get rejected early. I think when I first started, I was sending things out, and I'd send out one submission, and I'd say, well, I did it, I submitted. I'll just wait now until that thing gets accepted, and it didn't. I'd wait 8 months. And by that point, my love for the thing I wrote has kind of diminished. So I say you have to send it out. Well, actually, I just learned you're supposed to send that in waves. You're supposed to have your top-notch places to submit to. You send it to them and you wait. And then when they say no, then you send it out to the rest. But I also read that you're supposed to submit to at least 40 or 50 places before you decide to move on from that one piece. So that means you have to be okay hearing 49 people say no just so that one can say yes. And I think that's worth it.
Since when did you start sort of loving typewriter or like writing in general?
So the journaling has been a thing for, as I said, for about 20 years, but the typewriter, I picked one up in 2013. And that first one was a Remington Quiet Writer. I bought it from a little shop that repaired them. That shop is now closed. And ever since then, whenever I come across one that's put up on Facebook or on Craigslist, I query about it. Because the other option is that if we don't pick them up, people are going to toss them, destroy them, or just sell them off for parts. So if there's a chance that I could take it and repair it and make it usable again, I'd love to do that and bring it in here.
Would you say you're really well-versed in like typewriter reparations?
Not yet. I can clean them and I can oil them. I had to go buy gun oil for the moving parts on it. I didn't know that's what you needed, but you scrub it with alcohol, you put the gun oil on it, and then it cleans it up really nicely. But I have one at home that has a busted platen. That's the rubber part on the top where the keys strike, and it's too hard, so that means that the keys strike through the ribbon and strike through the paper. So that is my big experiment of trying to replace that. I'm working on it. Yeah.
And this is something you do in your free time. What are some of your other hobbies and pastimes that you have?
Usually on the weekends, I'm scanning Craigslist for wood. I'm looking for any places that are taking down trees because we have a wood-burning stove, and so we like to build up our wood supply every year. So I will take our SUV out to the road, and we will load it up with logs and then take it back and then spend the next part of the morning just splitting wood in the front yard. Also doing woodwork, building shelving, creating coasters for people. So we're trying to move toward gift giving that is based on things we can make and not just things we can buy. So my wife and my child, they are sewing, they're making bags, they're doing things like that, and I want to contribute my part of it too.
What is your best memory from teaching at South High?
I can say it happens, it's not a single individual, it happens every year. It's when seniors come up to you and tell you where they're going and what they're doing. Because if I knew them in 9th grade and I had them in 11th grade and I wrote letters of recommendation for them, it's them achieving what they wanted to do, which is what I'm here to do. I'm here to help you get where you want to go. And to know that it's actually been done, that's the rewarding part. I have friends who are plumbers, friends who are carpenters, and they get to see, every time they're done with the work, they see the end result. And teachers too often don't get to see that. So we send you off and then you're gone, and then sometimes we don't hear back from what you're doing. At least then we know, okay, you're going where you wanted to go, we did it. We helped you get there, and I'm so proud of you. That's always the highlight for me in the year.
And just back on like a point you mentioned earlier about your pastimes. So I heard you go camping a lot. And do you feel that you write a lot, or you get a lot of writing done in like outdoors?
No. No. The writing gets done in my basement. The writing does get done when we travel. I have a traveling typewriter, a brother typewriter. It's special to me because when my uncle passed at the beginning of the pandemic, when we were finally able to go to his house and go through the stuff, that was buried in his closet. And it's a typewriter from the year I was born. So as soon as my family showed it to me, I'm like, can I please have this? And that's the one that travels with me everywhere we go when we go by car. And it gathers stickers just like all these other ones, but it has all the locations, and that's where I do a lot of the writing when we move about.
That's absolutely amazing. And I feel like everyone has like some object that carries a lot of memories, a lot of history for them, and it's really important to them.
Yeah. We keep them close and keep them clean, those typewriters, yeah.
And one final question, what is the best part of being a teacher?
It's that even if you know what you're teaching that year, even if you have the same books, the same curriculum, the people who come into the classroom are what make it different and unique. So it'll change, and they'll have new perspectives, they will offer new insights, and so you get to have new experiences even if you've done it 20 years already. It does get to change.
So that's it for our interview today. Thank you so much, Mr. Moran, for taking your time with us and talking to us today.
Well, thanks for having me.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
This podcast is brought to you by The Southerner, Great Neck South High's newspaper. It is hosted by Sarah Sun and Lily Wu, directed by Amelia Liao, and edited by Janice Lee.